Alright, so we've talked about art, we talked about political affairs. Now let's actually talk about how the encroaching effects of Western powers on the Eastern powers as China actually affected the people themselves. So, if we look back at the documentary that we watched before, you could see that after the Opium War and the Century of Humiliation began, China was actually put into a bit of a tough spot. After they finally finished all that, there were the nationalists, and then there were the communists. Nationalists, in a sense, were pretty much the businessmen, the capitalists, who have all been influenced by these Western powers, by these warring states, in a sense, and by the people who think, hey, exploiting the poor, making more money, good for the people. Yes, in the long run it was. It allowed China to industrialize more than it ever had in a very long time. Granted, the rich-poor gap got larger and larger, and then something happened in China that we don't normally actually see, or that we didn't see for a very long time. More of a split in structure was starting in the beginning. Not just class structure, not just the rich-poor gap, actually families. Families were tending to split up because fathers were nationalists, like fathers, mothers, older generation were nationalists, whereas the younger people were communists, people who wanted to rebel, people who wanted complete equality, because honestly, who doesn't want complete equality? Like you showed us in the documentary, not the documentary, but the interview, on the last day during the exam, on Monday during the exam day, the guy said that if you are 18 and don't believe in communism, what are you waiting for? And if you're 40 and still believe in communism, you're an idiot. Because the nationalists actually believe that communism can't work, complete equality won't work, the nation itself always needs to have someone who's in power who can actually direct and control where the nation is heading, and, in a sense, hoard all the money. This whole mindset was put on encroaching British, encroaching French, encroaching Spanish, whoever else went to China and started cutting up pieces of the pie. Because this all influenced China, this idea of merchanting, trading, to actually better themselves as a nation and actually industrialize. Even when Mao was in power, not when Mao was in power, even when Deng was in power, this is also seen, because in the documentary, it would also say that this capitalist party, it was a capitalist country with a communist party. Honestly, I have to disagree with that. I think it's completely capitalist, because Deng basically used the party as an excuse to, in a sense, hoard money, make improvements to China. Yes, he made improvements to China. He industrialized China to an extreme amount, fixed a lot of things except the rich-poor gap and the actual splitting of family. This is what Mao was actually trying to avoid with his pushes for communism and starting the Red Army, because he didn't want the actual Communist Party or the party to actually separate itself from the people or be the vanguard of the people. Now, it's interesting enough, all this conflict between class, family, and these political individuals was all caused by interaction with the West. So, hypothetically, if China never had contact with the West and was still completely remote, completely in its own area, its own little world, would there still be conflict today? I'd have to say no. The ideas of capitalism, the ideas of greed, the ideas of actual personal improvement tainted China in a sense to me. I remember a long time ago when we were looking through packets and I can't remember which dynasty it was exactly, but it was, honestly I think it might have been all of them, but merchants weren't really considered the class. They were considered the lowest of the low, the people that didn't really do anything because they didn't really contribute. Farmers, they made goods. Soldiers, they fought in wars. Artists made art. They all contributed. What do the merchants do? Merchants get money to actually help fund the war. Merchants sell off the farmers' goods to make money for themselves. Merchants sell off the artists' goods to make money for themselves. Merchants buy weapons or sell weapons to armies to actually better improve them. In a sense, all the money is going back to them, nothing is going into China. They're basically reselling and selling all these things being made honestly just for pure profit. Therefore, they weren't really considered a class. They were considered the lowest working class you could have, whereas the farmers were at the highest because they contributed food and they actually kept China alive and sustained. So all in all, the whole idea of one planet, two worlds makes complete sense to me. For me at least, I'm an AP Psych right now, and the nature versus nurture topic is extremely big it's like the thing we always refer back to with behavioral psychology, with evolutionary psychology, with biological psychology. They all have their own ways of treating their patients based on either nature or nurture. To me at least, I think nurture is way more important because you're born Chinese. You're not born with a certain mindset that, oh, family is important. I want to be a farmer when I grow up. No, you're not. You're born completely blank, tabula rasa. Whereas if you're born Western, you're not born, oh, I want to be a capitalist. Oh, I want to get the most money in the world. I want to be the best. It's all through nurture. And since China, for so many generations, was nurtured in its own little world, its own little quadrant, it was able to develop a more peaceful, a more art-friendly, and more, in a sense, civilized state. Whereas Westerners had to keep worrying about wars, impending conflicts, and actually be a little bit more aggressive in their own people and when dealing with external affairs. So, all in all, I think that if China never actually had contact with the West, they might still be the pure, untainted nation they were today, where the people were pretty much conjoined as a whole. I wouldn't say communist, I wouldn't say complete equality, but more equal than they were now.